This week, things must change. The war has been raging for 3 years. It has been nothing but monotonous murder. Last week, we slowly crept towards events from the stalemate at Petersburg to the staring contest at seas. The question now, is there hope? Last week at Lynchburg, the Army of West Virginia came back from its defeat at Newmarket, burning through their opposition, but they now faced the veteran Second Corps of Lee's army. The 17th saw success, but that night fear took heart, aided by the words of prostitutes. The two sides brought forth the cannons to sound battle on the 18th. Dawn, the opening salvos of the battle. General Robert.E.Lee, commander of the Confederates, sounds off with cannon shells. General Hunter, his opponent, responds with General Crook, who searches for a way to flank the rebels. He finds none after 4 miles, begins to march back. Sensing opportunity, the rebels strike the weakened center of our line. The fighting is fierce between the infantry, but the cavalry of General Dufay threatens the secessionist flank. Therefore, more greatcoats are sent trying to pierce the center and isolate the cavalry. Muskets sound, first in synchrony, and later, alone as training gives way to survival. The veteran units of the Second Corps don't fall back easily, so they are repulsed at high losses. Hunter has kept the battlefield, but the tenacity of the fight has convinced him he is in danger, and during the night, he falls back. Hunter is pursued till the 21st, when he leaves the Shenandoah Valley. A terrible loss, 700 to Early's 200. Worst of all, Maryland is open to the Confederacy. As we are at the gates of Richmond, they're at the walls of D.C. 12:30, June 18th, the Dimmock Line. The Confederates' defensive line at Petersburg has collapsed, by design. General Beauregard has pulled back to another line along Harrison's Creek, expertly constructed. The last few hours have seen a stubborn defense, but now it's time for a new challenge. Union advances with artillery range of the city itself. The rebels take their bayonets, knives, and tin cans and start digging. As the Union attacks, it soon finds the forward line, the Dimmock Line, abandoned, and at 1500 hours, 4 corps assault the actual Confederate line. It fails terribly. The infantry is blown to pieces. Everywhere that can be filled with gunfire is. Hell on earth before Petersburg. Night draws a close to the battle. Since the 15th, Grant lost 10,000 men to Beauregard's 4,000. Petersburg could have been taken five separate times, but for some reason or another, it stays in the rebellion's hands. The 10,000 man cost is just the beginning of the grueling siege of Petersburg. Night falls on the 18th. General Grant is looking at rebel breastworks. General Lee has arrived. This isn't supposed to happen. I can't have another Cold Harbor. I can't keep on being slowed down by ignorant subordinates. They feared the sight of blood, but lead men into battle? They should have pressed their advantages when they could have, but now it's too late. Frontal charges would be futile. But I can't leave Lee to his own devices. If we need Petersburg to starve Richmond, then we will starve Petersburg. Lee is a tactical master, but he has not seen sieges like that of Vicksburg. I will make Vicksburg's strangling look like a hug.
Please order Colonel Abbott's siege train forward.
3 railroads, 3 lifelines for Lee. The Richmond-Petersburg Railroad, running north to the seat of treason, the South Side Railroad, which brought Early to Lynchburg, and the Petersburg-Weldon Railroad, the link to the final major port of Jefferson Davis's government, Wilmington, North Carolina. Actually, how many final major ports are there? Those cavalrymen love nothing more than glory. General Wilson from the Army of the Potomac, General Kautz from the Army of the James will take care of the South Side of London railroads on their glorious charge. That should cut Lee to the bone. While a frontal charge would be disastrous, we can expand our line, give our men some more room to breathe, and seize the Weldon line. Let's see this Virginian fight without foreign aid. City Point, Grant's HQ. He has decided to extend the line west and take hold of the Weldon Junction. This task will be given to the 2nd Corps under the temporary command of Major General Birney and the 6th Corps under Major General Wright. Both men are to visit him post-haste. The surprise visitor. What in God's name is the president doing here? District of Columbia, President Lincoln. 20th, he drafts a letter to the governor of Ohio, requesting supervision of recently returned, controversial Confederate supporting Clement Vallandigham, and if necessary, his arrest. He doesn't send the letter. Why? Maybe he doesn't want to make a martyr out of Vallandigham. Maybe he's worried about the surveillance of a political opponent being revealed. Maybe it isn't worth the effort. It isn't worth the effort. He tucks the letter into his desk, puts on his hat, and begins a journey to Virginia. City Point, Grant's HQ. The ship has docked the chief executive at the General-in-Chief's tent. Grant visits the ship, scared he might be replaced.
I just thought I would jump aboard a boat and come down and see you. I don't expect I can do any good, and in fact I'm afraid I may do some harm. But I'll just put myself under your orders, and if you find me doing anything wrong, just send me right away.
Lincoln isn't here to change commanders. While Grant's campaigns have been bloody and not seen much success, Old Abe still has full faith in his officer. He reviews some men of the Sixth Corps right before they leave for battle. He talks strategy with Grant, concurring with the commander. The 22nd, they steam to General Butler. After a brief conversation, Lincoln returns to the capital. The 23rd, he arrives tired from his military duties, passing out in his bed. He wakes on the 24th to cheers. D.C. became free in 1862. Virginia to the south became free in 1863. Now Maryland has ended slavery in 1864. The capital will never see that evil institution again. Enough happiness. Don't you know that's dangerous? The Lincoln diversion was great and all, but battle calls. Back to the 21st, Wilson and Couts ride out. The Battle of Jerusalem Plank Roads begins. 2nd Sixth Corps should have an easy task. Cross Jerusalem Plank Road, pivot northwest, and reach the rail lines. Major General Birney has actually already beaten back Confederate cavalry. Good, they're here. Wilson and Couts don't need to fear rebel riders. But good luck doesn't last forever, and these skirmishes will be the final time Birney sees fortune. Swamp, trees, Mother Nature is a cruel parent. By the 22nd, the strong line that beat back those secessionist skirmishers has broken in two. The pivot plan promptly fails as Lee responds to Grant's advance with his 3rd Corps under Lieutenant General Hill. The 6th Corps meets with Major General Wilcox's division, volleys trade, and men die. General Wright doesn't want to risk a battle and begins to entrench, leaving a huge gap between him and Birney. It turns out Lady Luck isn't just Birney's ex, but a complete cheater, as she goes over to the rebellion. Joe Mahone is a divisional commander under Hill, and the land before him has great sentimental value. He was a railroad engineer and worked on this exact stretch of tracks, and wouldn't you know, there's a ravine leading right to the 2nd Corps' flanks, completely unobservable. 1500 hours, Judgment Day. General Barlow is relaxing, watching his division dig in, when frantic yelling pierces the silence. Soon his mass of men become a fleeing mob. Mahone has arrived. His division is the first domino to fall, followed by General Mott's 3rd Division, and finally Gibbon's 2nd Division. The 2nd Corps has collapsed.
The attack was to the Union troops more than a surprise. It was an astonishment.
I didn't know there was a difference between surprise and astonishment, but who am I to argue? Mahone has done well, but his men are tired. Wilcox, if he can assist, the two of them can destroy Birney's corps. And here, Lady Luck breaks up with Mahone. Wilcox only sends 2 regiments. The 2nd Corps rallies and overpowers the single division that opposes them. They retake their breastworks, and as night falls, the two sides sleep, knowing the next day fighting will resume. 23rd, dawn. The 2nd Corps wakes with the terrible call of the bugle, ready to punish their opponents. A gallant yell, they charge to retake their lost ground, and it's unopposed, Mahone having pulled back. Victory? No. The 6th Corps will see the real fight this day, specifically the 2nd Division under Officer Neal. General Wheaton lands within 2 miles of the railroad, throwing up breastworks to protect the Vermont Brigade under General Grant. No relation. Though fun fact, his son will be named Ulysses Sherman Grant. Naming your only child after your bosses is one way to get a promotion. Where was I? Yes, 2 miles from the railroad. The Vermonters move forward, some take up a support position overlooking the railroad. Others get to work tearing it up. Others push forward to alert if there's any Confederate threat. Soon they come running back in. Mahone has arrived. Like lightning, the rebels surge forward, pushing Grant back to the breastworks. But they don't stop there. Commander Harris takes his Mississippians to the northern flank, and Officer Weisiger to the southern. Virginians under Weisiger split the 4th Vermont and reach the rear. The left half of the 4th Vermont tries to rally under Captain Tracy, but musket ball meets the captain's neck, forcing the surrender. The right half retreats to the protection of a battery, but the Mississippians charge in. The regiment is destroyed. 344 men fall into enemy hands. Meade demands Wright move forward, take the railroad, free the men. But the 6th Corps commander refuses, worrying he could face what the 2nd Corps did the day before. I don't know what to say to that. Luckily, Meade does.
Your delay has been fatal. On this particular occasion, Wright showed himself totally unfit to command a corps.
1,700 Union soldiers will face the hell on earth that is Confederate prison camps. Despite this loss, Grant names Jerusalem Plain roads of victory. He had torn up some of the rail lines, fixed easily, and extended his lines westward, not as far as hoped. Though not all of our eggs are in one basket, they're in two. It's either double as good or only slightly better depending on the function used to measure the goodness of egg baskets. You can hear all about this in my sister series, Math Week by Week, which has already been canceled due to low ratings, any way you count them. Am I proud of that joke? No. Yeah, I am. Wilson and Coutt's raid. They have seen unopposed success up to the 23rd, when the Confederate cavalry that should have been pinned down in Petersburg faces them at Burke's Station. It's only a small force from General Robert.E.Lee's division, but it does put ginormous pressure on our horsemen. 24th, Cots continues, skirmishing as Wilson rides forward to Maharan Station, tearing up tracks on the Richmond-Danville Railroad. This is a victory, but how long will it last? Final action in Virginia is the return of Sheridan, running parallel to General Hampton. He parries him at White House, breaks through Confederate barriers at St. Peter's Church, crosses his wagons over the 22nd and 23rd. 24th, General Gregg has received a report from fellow division commander Torbert of a minor encounter with Confederate cavalry. Worrying. Gregg's main job is to protect the supply train's right flank. How did the rebels get past him? While mulling this question over, he gets another report from one of his brigade commanders. At a crossroads, rebel pickets were chased off. That's good. But they fell back to a rebel brigade. Gregg's two brigades soon find themselves struck from all over. 5 rebel brigades push on them, and they break. But the mission wasn't to beat back Hampton, only protect the supply wagons, which is a success. We can now count our chickens. We're getting a lot of mileage from this egg metaphor. 21st, the Confederate cabinet sees a major change.
I knew the extreme difficulty of conducting the Treasury Department during the pending struggle.
With the delivery of that letter, President Davis accepts the resignation of Secretary Christopher Memminger. The Confederate public won't hear about this for some time, and Memminger will continue in the role until July 18th, when his replacement takes over. Let's view Memminger's tenure. He failed utterly. I have long been a critic of Confederate finances, and there are many issues caused by him. He issued banknotes at 1/3 their previous value. But he was also in an unwinnable situation. He lacks charisma. The Congress has shot down some of his better proposals. Also, he has to deal with a complete lack of industry, a wartime economy, and a blockade. The stress that forced his resignation is understandable. Brest Harbor, France. The blockade has been going on for a week. Not a siege against Emperor Napoleon, but a single ship, the CSS Alabama, the most successful vessel in the rebel navy. The effective Captain Raphael Seams is looking fate in the face, peering out towards the USS Kearsarge, and my god is fate not to his liking. The Kearsarge has telegraphed the USS St. Louis for assistance, putting a ticking clock before the Alabama will be outnumbered. After the battle, Seams will see if he had known he was facing such a well-armed opponent, he would have never tried battle. But he didn't. Soon, on the morning of the 19th, at 9:45, the ship leaves the safety of the harbor. French citizens watch from their homes, hoping to see the events. The British yacht, the Deerhound, follows the Alabama out to get a better sight, while the French ironclad, oh god, I might pronounce a French name, the Couronne, ensures the battle happens out of French waters, 10:50 hours, 7 miles from the French coast, 4 miles from their jurisdiction. Captain Winslow, commander of the Kearsarge, orders his ship to port and towards the Alabama. 10:57, 1,200 yards distance, Captain Raphael Seams orders his starboard gun, 6 total to fire. The first shots foul Sherman. They all miss! Kearsarge moves to close in, receiving 2 more salvos. They also are too high to hit. 100 hours, 900 yards. Winslow orders his guns to fire. Winslow attempts to cross the bow. Seams does the same. This means both ships are going to go in circles for the remainder of the battle. One of my sources generally likens it to prize fighters in a boxing ring. I think it was like a ballet dance battle. Captain Seams orders rapid, constant fire. His shots are quick but inaccurate. Captain Winslow's fire is slower but soon finds the range. The shot blasts away the rebel ensign. But luckily for Seames, he has a spare, which he soon raises. Seeking revenge, he orders another salvo. One shell does strike the Kearsarge, but is a futile effort. Not only is the hull well maintained, it also has chain armor, the medieval kind. This first hit does cut the chain and dent the wood, but even if it had pierced, it would have been of no concern. Another shell does do damage, not to the Kearsarge, but the crew, wounding 3 sailors. But these are very small victories. The Kearsarge has greater ones. The hull of the Alabama has taken serious damage, and its crew has suffered. Why isn't their fire working? They're firing duds. One 100-pound shot lands in the steam post. It doesn't explode. After months at sea, 50% of their shells won't explode. Seames orders to switch to solid shot. The Kearsarge has no issue with their munitions. A well-placed shot strikes the Alabama below the waterline, exploding by the coal bunker. The coal protects the engine room somehow, but the dust marks the hit, and more shots follow. Seames has to rush men to keep the ship afloat, but more holes in the hull appear. 45 minutes into the battle, the fatal shot finds its mark, and the engine room starts to flood. The Alabama is turned towards the safety of the French coast. The Kearsarge moves to intercept and is quicker, turning to cut Seames off from France. Winslow fires again. No hope left. The Alabama lowers the ensign. The Kearsarge continues to fire. This is going to become a massacre? Seames claims it was a deliberate violation of the customs of war. More likely, the fog of war hid the lowering. Winslow just assumed he shot the ensign off. And right after Seames lowered the flag, his guns fired, without his orders. But Winslow didn't know that. The white flag is raised above the Alabama, and firing ceases. Seames no longer has to worry about battle, only how to save his men. There are lifeboats, but only 2 are undamaged after the fight. He orders one to row towards the Kearsarge to ask for assistance. But the Kearsarge also has only 2 undamaged boats. Winslow asks the Deerhound yacht and other French ships for assistance. As ships rush towards the sinking Alabama, Seames prepares for surrender. He throws his sword into the sea, as do many of his officers. He wants to ensure Winslow gets as little honor from this battle as possible. It's a moot point, because he is taken aboard the Deerhound. The Deerhound controversy. First, out of the 20 officers and 24 petty officers on the Alabama, it takes 22, of which 14 are officers, including Seames and his second in command, First Lieutenant Kell. Was this prearranged? And was the immediate sailing to England planned, hoping to avoid capture? All of those involved deny any planning, but it's curious, isn't it? Another question is, why did the Deerhound go unopposed? Officers on the Kearsarge asked Winslow to fire on it or stop it in some way. Winslow claimed that an English gentleman would never break this custom and run away. It was impossible. The yacht was simply coming round. Cultural illiteracy are planned. Seames and Kell are pirates, the punishment for which is the noose. Why does this matter? Because while neither mention it, Seames and Winslow were once cabin mates. Is it possible that Winslow didn't want to see his old friend hung? Furthermore, he is very kind to the captured crew, hurling them much of the anger of Secretary of State seaward. Interesting, isn't it? The Battle of Cherbourg is a great victory nonetheless. We suffered 2 wounded and 1 dead. By the way, Seaman William Gowen, the single loss, is a hero who gave up his own care to ensure Confederate wounded were properly treated. Confederate wounded are 22 in number, 68 captured, 16 drowned, and 9 killed during the battle. And most important of all, the CSS Alabama, the only threat of note to the Union, is 200 feet underwater, never to resurface. Winslow is promoted to Commodore and receives the thanks of both Congress and the people of the North. The damned nuisance is over. The final section of the war is the Battle of Georgia. Lieutenant General Leonidas Polk was killed last week, and this week sees the aftermath. The 19th, General Joseph Johnston pulls his men back to Kennesaw Mountain and Bosom Peak. But Johnston will later say he would have traded all the rivers, ravines, and mountains in Georgia for proper ammunition and supply. Sherman has that. More than that, he has hope. A dangerous thing. He believes the rebels have fallen even further back than they have, crossing over the, more pronunciation, Chattahoochee River. The distance between their actual position and Sherman's believed one is small, but the importance is gigantic. Marietta, the main target, the railroad hub that feeds the Confederacy, is still protected. This can't be allowed. General Blair's corps moves to occupy a hill, takes it after minor skirmishing. This allows General Leggett to overwatch the Battle of Noonday Creek between both sides' cavalry. Wishing to support his mounted brothers, Members of the battery brought up and since case shot down. These developments are too quick to be reported, and other corps believe Leggett is the enemy and open fire. Now this does get reported and sorted out.
Before serious mischief was done.
Time for a new movement. Weather has so far foiled many plans.
This is the 19th day of rain, and the prospect of fair weather is as far off as ever.
But Mother Nature can't stop Sherman's war effort. 21st, the Army's march moving to turn the Confederate left flank. Principal corps for this action are the 20th and 23rd, also known as the Army of the Ohio. General Schofield should be defending General Hooker's flank. I'll get back to that later. Johnston knows he is in a terrible spot. His lines are overextended as they are, and now Hooker and Schofield are at his flanks. He takes a risk and sends General Hood to cover this flank. This means he's open to assault from the Army of the Tennessee. His only hope is to send his cavalry to fill these lines, and the enemy won't notice. His only other alternative would be retreat. And where can he go? He's under orders from Davis, but even more than politics, Marietta is his last stand. Its loss would mean his army's destruction. June 22nd, dawn meets with clear skies. There's no 20th day of rain. Perfect. Battle can commence. Hooker's to take the 20th Corps and move towards Marietta. Schofield will move along the Powder Springs-Marietta Road. The two will link up, and the city will be ours. The trudging footsteps of the 20th Corps are reported to Hood, who forms up for battle. Hooker also learns of the enemy and prepares himself. He digs in from Cobb's Farm to Powder Springs Road, from Howard's flank to Colonel Silas Strickland's brigade. And now, let's return to Schofield. His cavalry commander is Major General George Stoneman. A familiar name. He commanded Hooker's cavalry at Chancellorsville. This is a connection not found in my sources, but I believe is important. Because Schofield is further south, his information, possibly from Stoneman, has had the 23rd Corps fortified and leave Hooker's flank in the wind. A reconnaissance mission is planned, including the 14th Kentucky from Strickland's brigade. They report a massive enemy force, the whole enemy army, and this report goes from the 14th to Strickland to General Haskell, who's sitting next to Schofield. This report causes Schofield to order his other division, led by Brigadier General Jacob Cox, to advance to Strickland's aid. In his later recollections of the battle, Cox will admit he didn't arrive till after the action. He also refers to himself in the third person and provides such great detail, I wonder if he is the king of gossip. Hooker, with only Haskell's division, of which only Strickland is of any use, fends off an assault by Hood. According to historian Castell, it was
more a one-sided slaughter than a battle.
Hood was repulsed quickly by canister and musketry. The assault was poorly managed, poorly executed, and poorly thought out. The importance of the battle is in the personal. Union lost 250 men, the rebels 1,500. Johnston is furious, not with the loss of men, though that does trouble him. Hood had assaulted without orders, and furthermore, he reported a great victory. Johnston will learn of Hood's lies years later. The real trouble is between Hooker and Schofield and Sherman.
Are you getting along? Near what house are you?
Hooker instantly replies, right after the heat of battle, with only Strickland's aid.
We have repulsed 2 heavy attacks and feel confident. Our only apprehension being our extreme right flank. 3 entire corps are in front of us.
For many different reasons, this response is delayed till night, when Cox has arrived, and Schofield is there in force. Sherman doesn't know this. What could have happened? How could Schofield not be there?
Dispatch received. Schofield was ordered this morning to be on the Powder Springs and Marietta Road. Close support of your right. Is this not the case? There cannot be 3 corps in your front. Johnston has but 3 corps, and I know from personal inspection that a full proportion is now and has been all day on his right and center.
Sherman is also unhappy with the break of the chain of command. Hooker should have reported first to General Thomas. He therefore sends Thomas to investigate, who very late at night sees Schofield's corps in position, and the aftermath of the battle. And here, the stories diverge. Sherman claims the 23rd he wrote to Schofield, showed him the letter, and with great anger Schofield responded it was a lie, and that he would gladly tour the battlefield with Sherman and show him the dead. The furthest forward would be from Haskell's division. Hooker is a liar! Sherman then wrote to General Hooker.
As we rode away from that church, General Hooker was by my side. I told him that such a thing must not occur again. In other words, I reproved him more gently than the occasion demanded. From that time he began to sulk.
General Hooker had come from the east with great fame as a fighter. At Chattanooga, he was glorified by his battle above the clouds, which I fear turned his head. He seemed jealous of all the army commanders because in years, former rank and experience, he thought he was our superior. That's Sherman's version. Hooker and Schofield have a different one. Schofield denies being angry with Hooker, instead recalls Hooker's report, which gave Haskell great credit. Furthermore, he didn't meet with Sherman. Maybe Sherman met with Haskell? Hooker defends his 3 corps claims. Not very well, but he was facing Hood. One of the divisions opposed General Hardee. General Loring's corps was in the area? Again, not very well. In Cox's magnum opus, Drama Diary, he says this incident was a personal one that could have been omitted from the history books. If it wasn't for the fact Hooker will never recover from the incident. There was a third member of the Chancellorsville crew, Hooker, Stoneman, and Howard, but that story remains for another time. Sherman has 3 choices before him. He could use McPherson to flank Johnston, but that could leave supply lines open. He could continue to bombard the rebels and make small, coordinated assaults. That would allow reinforcements to be sent to Lee. Or he could go for an all-out assault, but that could cost thousands of lives to maybe take the mountains, or doom the campaign. The whole country is one vast fort, and Johnston must have at least 50 miles of connected trenches with Abatis fish batteries. We gain ground daily, fighting all the time. Our lines are now we gain ground daily, fighting all the time. Our lines are now in close contact, and the fighting incessant, with a good deal of artillery. As fast as we gain one position, the enemy has another already. Kennesaw is the key to the whole country. Let's flip Sickles and the conclusion. This week needed change, and we didn't get it. The biggest change was the sinking of the CSS Alabama, a single wooden ship, which, when I phrase it that way, makes it sound far less impressive. That was the highlight. Dang it. Then there's Sickles. Fellow New Yorker and political insider Thomas Thorpe has invited him to speak at the Louisiana Constitutional Convention. This is the first time he has spoken before an audience in the Confederacy, former Confederacy, a group that has failed to complete their elected role, chided for lengthy infighting, and a love for the bottle. Not the ideal audience. Let me assure you, gentlemen, that your labors attract the attention not only of the people of Louisiana, but of the whole Union, the President, and the Congress of the United States. The loyal people elsewhere look with solicitude upon the great duty you have to perform. I'm delighted to see so many evidences of cultural enterprise and future greatness by the loyal men of Louisiana. The loyalty of those who have been faithful to the old flag under all the terrors and torture of rebel rule, as you have been, commands the heartiest and truest homage. The institution of slavery is an element of dissolution, causing the early fathers of the Republic profound alarm. Secession and war are clearly evil, but their result, leading to the coming defeat of slavery as an institution, has restored to our Constitution and our polity that symmetry which was necessary to perfection, removed from it the only serious element of danger which menaced our security. The America of the future, a nation entirely free from ocean to ocean, will be a greater and better country than ever we could boast of before. Let us then, gentlemen, in our respective spheres, do all we can to promote this end. Let us feel impressed with the justice of the cause we are engaged. Let us be guiltless of any act of injustice to others. Hi, it's the entire Civil Week by Week team here. I hope you enjoyed the video despite my terrible attempts at comedy, and also the Battle of Cherbourg. I really grappled with it since I don't know how to make naval battles interesting. Well, I don't know how to make anything interesting, but especially naval battles. If you liked it, please give it a like. Your support separates this from math week by week. I hope to see you next time.